Is an exciting day for Franklin Township as we embark on a chicken opportunity with backyard chickens across residential communities. We have some amazing speakers tonight. Most importantly, Kate Brown from the Rutgers Agricultural Extension is going to go through some of the best practices for keeping chickens, making sure that the conditions are safe and that we're being respectful of the animals, and you have a lot of joy from that, but also that we do it in a way that's responsive to the neighbors and, you know, folks across our community. Just a little bit of background. This ordinance just passed recently. There was a lot of support from my members of council, but it took me almost 3+ years to get to a place where we could make this a reality. A lot of neighboring towns do have backyard chicken ordinances, and both the Environmental Commission, which meets twice monthly, and the Agricultural Commission did review the ordinance and made recommendations. And then, of course, the staff here take a look at it, and then members of council. So we're going to hear from Kate, and then we're going to hear from Katie. Katie Nordhaus is our animal control officer, and she's going to explain a little bit about the registration process and other things related to the ordinance based on the parcel size. So how big is your lot, and how many chickens are allowable, and sort of the best care and what her role is going to be in it. And of course, mostly we're going to take questions. Anyone currently have chickens that's here and wants to be better at it? Or is everybody a chicken backyard flock newbie? One person with chickens. Okay, so hopefully we can create a kind of community around this as well. I'll make one recommendation. I'm a member of New Jersey Backyard Chicken Facebook group, and it's really awesome because a lot of people post there about questions they have with regard to my chicken did this. Does this foot look normal? How much insulation should I have? Should I heat in the winter? What about, you know, adding supplements? Is this an unusual behavior? And folks are really supportive of one another. And then in addition, the availability of chickens as chicks, and this is sort of the chick season, folks do get them. Sometimes they can't keep as many as they thought, so they become available. And so just a really nice community around the state. A lot of people, all different levels, offering advice. And we hope that you'll have a great experience if you decide to go in that direction. If you ever have questions, you can definitely reach out to me. Again, my name is Councilman Ed Potosnik. I live in the 1st Ward. That's where I'm a member of council. Before that, I was a member of the school board for about 7 years, where I was school board president. And before that, I was a high school chemistry teacher for about 10 years. And we have a small flock of our own in an agricultural area. And I just thought it wasn't really fair that only some people could have chickens. And with the price of eggs the way it is these days, I think there's a lot of interest. I will just say, not to steal any of your thunder, I don't know if you're going to cover this, but if you're here to save money on eggs, I'm not sure the math works out. But if you're here to raise a flock and really have some joy for your family, just like we keep other sorts of pets, they are delightful, and they do produce eggs, which can be really beneficial to your family. And I believe they're at a much higher level for their nutritional value as you control what goes into feeding them. It's not from the store where you don't know. And then secondly, it gets rid of tons of waste scraps that you might have in your house. Chickens can eat nearly everything. There are a few things they can have, like skins of potatoes, although the inside is okay. Generally, they don't eat anything that they're not supposed to. Somehow they're smart enough to do that, which is cool. And you reduce a lot of your waste. So that's really good for us, so we're not going into the landfills. And it also reduces your bills, because when they eat the food scraps or anything you cut that you didn't put into the food, the little ends of stuff, that also reduces your cost for food. So we're going to get more into that. I know there's a lot of really great practices out there, and then we'll have a chance for questions. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Kate Brown, and she's been tremendous in the process. She took a look at our ordinance and really thought we had some great suggestions in there as far as how we crafted it. And I'm really eager to just learn a lot too, because you know some stuff, but you don't really know everything. So thank you for being here, for agreeing to be here, and all the work you do on so many other issues across the region. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. So yes, my name is Kate Brown. I am the County Agricultural Agent with Rutgers Cooperative Extension. And if that is a familiar, or rather unfamiliar, string of words for you, I want you to be aware that Rutgers has 21 county offices, an office in every county in New Jersey, where we have an agriculture and natural resource department. So that's me serving primarily the commercial agriculture and land management audience of the county. And then I have colleagues that are in the 4-H youth development program. So they're working primarily with youth on various specific topics, such as raising poultry or other livestock, or more generally on career and personal leadership development. And then another set of colleagues that works in family and community health sciences. So looking at chronic disease prevention, improving diet and physical activity. Has anyone ever been in our county extension office over in Bridgewater? Okay. Oh, wow. Just a couple people. Well, come join. Oh, yeah. Kathy's there, once a month for our Board of Agriculture meetings. But anyway, we welcome you to come over. Hopefully we can continue building programming that is beneficial to you all, but certainly happy to come out to the township here and speak with you all about backyard chickens. Yes. Yeah, so our county office is on Milltown Road in Bridgewater, right across from North Branch Park, where the county fair is, or the 4-H fair is, across the street there. So if you come to the fair, you're basically there, and that's put on by my colleagues in the 4-H department. Hope to see you there. So I gave a little preface in the beginning to the folks that were here right on. Sorry, it's not advancing. That my background is more in crop production, and I do have some personal experience with caring for poultry, although I am primarily background in horticulture, and so I hope that I'm able to answer your questions today, and if I can't, we will certainly get the answer to you. Sorry about that. So, Councilman put up a lot of reasons why you might want to have chickens. I didn't put up nearly as many of those. I was thinking more about supplying eggs for yourselves, although, of course, that's certainly not at a cost reduction, but it can certainly be a rewarding experience for you and your family. Also, companionship, like just any other type of pet that you might have. And I introduced our 4-H youth development program. If any of you have youth at home, one of the programs, one of the clubs that our 4-H team has is called Waddles and Snood, and it's specific to raising poultry. And so if you are thinking of getting a backyard flock, then you can get your kids involved by putting them in this club, and then they will have responsibility to help you maintain that flock, and they will learn a lot more about it just by being part of this club. So perhaps one of the first things to think about when you're thinking about having a backyard flock is which breed are you going to choose? And I didn't put any suggestions here because there are so many for you to choose from. However, you will be looking primarily for birds that are raised for egg laying. So there are different breeds that are specific for egg laying, those that are broilers, primarily raised for meat, and some that are dual purpose, so they can kind of serve both roles. But specifically looking for egg layers for you all, and then a lot of other considerations. You've probably seen those beautiful photos of multicolored eggs and things like that. So you might want to think about what color eggs does this breed produce? Are they those jumbo eggs, or am I looking for more of a smaller size? How many birds can you accommodate? And that will affect the size of bird that you're looking for. Certain breeds, just like dogs, are more or less calm. They might be slightly more aggressive, things like that. So you want to look for one that's more docile, and particularly if you have children, one that would do well in, with young people and more activity going on in their environment. Also, productivity. Certain breeds are just known to produce more eggs and also have a higher conversion rate of feed to eggs, which can be helpful for cost reductions. And then hardiness, because we've experienced, I would say, like a more real New Jersey winter this year than in the past years, but it can be something to think about when you're choosing your breed, that they do need to be able to withstand the type of climate that we have here, not just the cold of the winter, but also the heat of the summer as well. So when it comes to sourcing birds, you heard there are a few different ways that you might obtain birds for your own property. Day-old chicks is very common, pullets and mature hens. I'm going to talk about all of these, but I just wanted to show this is one breed of chicken, the barred rock, and how it changes over the course of its maturity here. So day-old chicks are certainly going to be the least expensive. You're looking at a couple to maybe $5 or $7 per chicken. I was looking today, depending on the breed. However, when you're getting chicks that are so young, just a day or a couple days old, they do need specialized care, because it's not like you can just get these chickens and put them right out in the coop and everything will be good. They need to be kept warm. They need to be kept indoors with a brooder set up, and it's a little more hands-on than you might be bargaining for. They also take a little longer time to mature. Certainly they need to go through, they need to be at least 18 weeks old before they start laying their first eggs, which are going to be much smaller. And you also want to look for something called sex link, and that means that when the chicks are hatched, the color determines their sex. So whether it's going to be a rooster or a hen, and the reason that that's important for you is that the ordinance requires you to not have any roosters. So you would hate to get what we call a straight run set of chicks. Say you get 10 chicks and 4 of them are roosters. So going with the sex link is a good way to ensure that the day-old chicks that you're getting are truly going to all be hens. Question? Good, okay. Additionally, you want to look for this National Poultry Improvement Project label. These breeders are ensuring that their flocks are free of pylori and typhoid at a minimum, and there are some other diseases that they're also screening for in this program. But this is the minimum, and it's very important that we keep these diseases out of our flocks here. You'll notice that I did reference the ordinance at the bottom of the slide. I've done that on several of the slides where maybe the information is more vague, but I want you to refer to the ordinance for the specific information that is targeted to this slide. So when it comes to pullets or hens, if you're not familiar with the term, pullets is going to be a young hen, one that is under a year of age. As I mentioned, they need to be about 18 weeks of age before they start to lay their first egg. This can vary by the breed, and the eggs at that age are much smaller than what you would expect for a mature hen. Then the hens are going to be, a year of age, laying those fully sized eggs and, laying at full speed as well. It's important to recognize, and I will talk about this a little bit later, but egg production does decrease with age. So they're very productive in the beginning couple of years of their lives, and then it starts to decline over time. So just something to keep in mind if you get all chickens that are the same age, then they will all start to decline in their egg production at the same time. And maybe eggs is not the primary reason why you're having chickens and you don't mind, but certainly in a commercial flock, they would start to think about replacing those chickens at that time. So of course, also starting to think about flock size. And again, you notice that the ordinance is recognized here as having specific recommendations for the amount of chickens that you can have on any given property. As I mentioned, in the first 12-month cycle, these chickens are going to be most productive. You see it's not 365 eggs. They're not laying an egg every day. It takes a little bit more than a day for them to produce an egg, so you would see maybe 5 to 6 eggs per week per chicken in their first year, and then that will decrease over time, about 20% in the second year, and so forth after that. Of course, egg production can also be variable depending on weather or stress, and chickens also go through a molting process, often in the fall, and that can delay their egg production at that time as well. So I've just included some different coops here for us to discuss before we talk about the specifics of what you need. Can anyone give me some pros or cons? Like, what do you like about these different coops or not like? What do you think about them? You didn't think you were going to have to talk today. Yes, let's hear it.
The ones are very, very small.
Okay, so we heard maybe they're very small, depending on the number of chickens for sure. Anything else? Anything you like? Yeah, so the one on the your upper right there is a mobile, so it can definitely be lifted a little bit like a wheelbarrow and kind of pushed around the yard, which could be nice. Trying to avoid areas getting too muddy and giving the chickens an opportunity to forage in the grass there. Anything else? I notice a bunch of different things. I would say that, let's look at all of them. So the one on the upper left is nice. I like that it's tall enough for you to be able to walk in when you're going to clean it. That's kind of an issue that I have with the one on the bottom left there, is it's quite small, maybe for 1 or 2 chickens, and you really, you're going to be like putting yourself inside the coop in order to clean it, and that's might deter you from cleaning it, which will negatively affect the chickens for sure. Yeah, I would say the mobile tractor is one that might interest you for sure, but you need to think about how to keep predators out of that as well, because you're not able to have the fence buried or something like that. It's very easy for something to just sneak under and grab those chickens while they're ranging in there. The farm that I worked at had something more like on the right, where the chickens there was a shed type coop, and it had a fenced area around it. It was a much taller fence, more like you see in the coop on the left. And that was nice because the chickens had a lot of area to roam. One of the challenges with it, I will say, is if the chickens didn't want to go back in the coop, it was very difficult to get them back in because they could easily just go around one side or the other. Again, that's one that you can't walk in. It is nice on a lot of them that the eggs seem to be very accessible. Like those sloped edges on the side, you can just lift up and grab the eggs out of. Yeah, a couple of them do have windows, nice for ventilation. Yeah, go ahead.
How would you heat something like that in the wintertime?
So heat in the winter is not something that I would recommend because of the risk of fire. Often with heat bulbs, we end up seeing, especially in these coops that are so small, you have a heat lamp very close to a flammable surface, which is like the shavings or the straw or whatever you're using in the bottom of the coop. Chickens are very hardy, and it's mostly important to just provide deep bedding for them and prevent any drafts from being in the coop. Make sure that it's sealed well and built well. I'm not sure if we didn't have a lot of people here that already had chickens, but I just generally fear heat inside such a small structure like this. Yes?
Yeah, well, I have like an old building.
Yeah.
And previous owners had chickens.
Okay.
And it seemed like a 35-20 building, and it had a heater in it. For
Okay.
that purpose.
Yeah, I would just add that they don't really need any heat source because they have insulation called feathers, which we put in our jackets to keep us warm. They already have them, and so the actual biggest challenge in the winter is keeping away breezes themselves. And that doesn't mean people don't heat their coops. Some folks think they need it, but we've had chickens now for 5+ years, and the coldest of the cold days in those seasons, no issues at all. In fact, the windows are open. Ventilation becomes a pretty big issue because they produce waste, and that waste material can actually choke them. So you need fresh air constantly overturned, but not windy. And then when they're roosting, they just sit down on their feet, and their bellies keep it all warm, and their feathers keep them totally insulated. And then their head, they have a certain position that they take, and they stay warm, and they make it all through the winter. Snow is a little tricky. You sometimes have to shovel for them. They're not really great in the snow, but it's sort of a misnomer around heating for them.
Yeah, I'm always amazed at not just chickens, but wild birds, how they can survive in such cold climates. And recognize here is that I also did reference the ordinance. There's a lot of information in there about where the coop can be situated on the property. So hopefully all of your properties can accommodate those limitations there. Yes, Kathy? Yes, I was going to say that the biggest concern for me in winter is water, providing fresh water. Heated water bowls has been successful in my experience. I'm not sure if you have any.
Similar, yeah. We just have a container which has a little tiny bit of heat that's added to keep it from freezing.
Yeah. They make, so in that way you would need electricity in order to heat those. That or just constant changing of the water.
I did grow up with chickens.
Yeah.
And that was just something I recall constantly having to go down and
Smash the buckets or, yeah.
Yeah, so for folks at home that maybe are not hearing, the question was about the water and it freezing in the winter. And you either need heat or you need to change it so it doesn't freeze.
Yeah.
The only other thing I would point out about the lower right-hand coop,
Yeah.
avian predators, particularly at night, great horned owls, there will,
Yeah.
like I
Take
said,
a couple.
we raise chickens.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So,
Like I said, at night, because they go in and they'll take just the heads off.
just for
You
fun.
know what it was.
Yeah, that is the thing about the predators. You can always tell which one has mangled your chickens. So it is definitely recommended to keep them in an enclosed environment like you see on the other ones. Or if they're going to be in a larger area, it's just one of the risks you take. Yes.
Also, I just want to add in, a lot of times during the day, red tail fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the avian predators include the hawks.
Yes.
We have a lot of experience with that.
Yes.
Do you
I don't want to run over time, but I appreciate all of the input, and we've touched on a lot of things that I had written down earlier as well. So I did break up the areas specifically. The coop. When I think of the coop, I'm referring to the indoor area where the chickens are housed. There are certain requirements, such as that there must be at least 2 square feet per bird. So think about that when you're considering the floor space inside your coop. We talked about the importance of ventilation and also providing deep litter. Notice that the ordinance also requires you to remove the waste from your coop area every 3 days. So again, thinking about the accessibility of that structure and how frequently you're really going to be able to get in there. When you think about which litter material to use, straw is very common. I think shavings is a better option. More absorbent for sure, and perhaps a little bit less dusty. We'll talk about the roosts and the nesting box in here in a couple minutes. Oh, a couple minutes has passed. Okay. So yeah, the nest boxes, I've seen a lot of different hacks for people how they actually provide a nest area for their chickens to lay their eggs. That's one of the other problems with free-range chickens is you'll end up finding them under the bushes or wherever they, if you're keeping them in your fenced yard, they will find a different place. So if you're keeping them contained, then you can provide a specific area. I've given a couple examples here. The bottom right is a little more of a standard example. This one's cool because it has these nest pads underneath as opposed to using straw or shavings. It keeps the eggs really clean, and it's also slightly slanted. You notice that all the eggs have rolled forward from where the chickens actually laid the eggs, and that keeps them from getting dirty, and it makes them very accessible in case you do have a hen that goes a little broody, wants to lay on the eggs, then you don't have to fight her to get those eggs out of there. The recommended size for a nest box would be 12 inches, 1 cubic foot per chicken, or rather per box, and providing 1 nest box for every 4 or 5 birds. So I would say a lot of the information that is in here, when I think about the size of coops and flocks that you'll all be having, is basically you'll have no trouble achieving the minimum requirements for the number of chickens that you actually intend to have. So just keep this in mind, but you'll probably end up having a coop that has at least 2 or 3 nest boxes, and you may only have 4 or 5 chickens, so they'll be overjoyed with that extra space. And it's just to make sure that you have a way for the chickens to access it. We noticed on the slide before that there was this nice rail on the bottom of the nest box there that the chickens could jump up to and then go into their nest box there. So it just makes it a little more accessible and usable for them in that way. So when it comes to the run, that larger outdoor area that the chickens are housed in, you want to have at least 10 square feet of floor space per bird. Sand is a good option for a ground cover. We find that these areas, when you're not using a mobile setup and the chickens are just stationary in their coop and run area, it can get a little muddy, especially if you're dumping water out or if you have, a lot of rains like we've been having, and they just end up picking up all the grass that looks like a really nice area to start with, but over time it gets degraded just by their activity. So having sand can be a good option. What do you use on the ground there? Sounds like you've gone
Mud.
through. Oh, yeah, okay.
But we've been adding sand and some wood material.
There's Tractor Supply sells like cedar pellets. They come as pellets, and when they get wet, they
Yeah. Absorb.
turn into sawdust, and that's awesome.
That's been working for you? Okay, good.
And
Yeah,
I would
the
just
chicken
say
community.
adding cedar pellets, just so we get it on the recording, yeah.
Okay, good. And if you're building the run area yourself, you definitely want to use a very sturdy hardware cloth. Chicken wire is kind of a misnomer. That is not a strong enough material to keep predators out. And you may even just damage it by bumping into it and things like that. You want to use a sturdy hardware cloth if you can. And I'll talk about using it for predator protection in a minute here. So the specific when we get thinking about the roost, chickens like to have an area where they can jump up to and sit on. You've seen that in earlier photos. When you think about doing that, you want to be able to get maybe a 1 or 2 inch piece of thick square piece of lumber and round it off on the top. That way it's easy for them to sit their feet on it. Provide it about 2 feet off the floor. Now, if you have a smaller breed of chicken, you might need to lower that to 1 foot. And 10 inches between the poles so that they can comfortably sit and have another friend, not interfering in their space. And providing, again, at least 5 to 10 inches of roost space per bird. But again, if you're having such a small flock, this won't be an issue. And I've included a photo here just to show how you might stack them as a ladder, one a little higher than the next. But people also do it horizontally as well. So I mentioned using hardware cloth for the run itself. It's a good idea to not just have that end at the ground. You either want to bury it so that digging creatures do not get into the coop that way. They'll work on it for a while, maybe on the back side of the fence. Well, I guess you can't be that close to the fence line, but they'll work on it and you may not notice until there's a bigger problem. Or you may do more of an apron where it comes down and goes horizontally across the ground to keep them out that way. Any small holes or things, there's various predators. We've heard recently that minks have been an issue, getting into the smallest spaces and going in and ravaging the animals in there. So just really make sure that it's a secure area. And I heard recently of a coop that had some predator issues that didn't have a door on it. So the birds were roosting at night, felt safe inside, but there was no door, so that it was easy access for a predator to get in there. They make doors that are even automatic. So if you have chickens that get used to their routine, they know that at sunset, they start to go in their coop, and you can set this to automatically close and then to automatically open when you want them to come out in the morning. So hopefully you get birds that are just as cooperative as that. And yeah, just other ways to try to keep as much moisture out of there as possible. As we heard, the chickens are going to produce a lot of moisture themselves just through their droppings and spilled water and things like that. Important to have good ventilation, but also to keep it dry. And just for more predator protection, you might think about having one of those like motion-activated solar lights on the outside, just so that it helps deter any creatures out there at night. When it comes to feed, the feed can be provided you will see many different hacks for how to provide feed, different troughs or kind of cup feeders and things like that. But essentially, you want to provide enough space for each bird to feel comfortable, and that is recommended to be about 4 linear inches per bird. I pulled this image here from our Rutgers fact sheet on helpful hints for backyard flocks. Basically, the good news is that if you're getting birds, there are complete feeds for all of their life stages. And so you just need to look for the feed that is appropriate for the life stage that they're in and offer it to them, and it's very simple to care for them in that way. The harder thing is to store the food securely, because anywhere that you have feed, there's going to be rodents wanting to get into it. So you need to have it in a very secure, maybe galvanized trash can or something like that that's really secure. Rodents will chew through plastic. They're very intrusive. And if you're adding birds, it's really an important thing to keep in mind. Have you had trouble? Oh, good. All right. Do what he does. We talked about supplemental feed from all of the kitchen scraps and things. It's very easy to get rid of food by tossing it to your chickens, but you should also consider giving them these 2 other supplements that can help with shell development and their digestion. So grit is one. That's going to be an insoluble form that helps them digest in their crop. Chicken anatomy. We won't get too deep into it. And also crushed oyster shell to help with their physical shell development. When it comes to water, again, there's numerous hacks for how to provide water to chickens cleanly. The biggest thing I learned at the farm where I was working is not to keep the water on the ground. So whether it's very simple as this one on the bottom there, set on like a cinder block or something like that to keep it basically at their back height so that it's very simple for them to get to it, but not to step in it, not to splash mud in it or anything like, not to step in it, things like that. Always having clean water accessible to them. And the one that's on the top right there, that's what we call a nipple feeder or nipple waterer. These are, you can make them yourself. They sell all the parts individually, or you can purchase them commercially made. You can really make this any way you want it to be, whatever works best for you. But I did want to look into a little bit. I have heard a lot of people talk about adding apple cider vinegar to water for chickens. I don't know if you do that. I was able to find some peer-reviewed studies that did demonstrate benefits of that for chickens, which I was glad to see. We find a lot of times there's kind of myths when it comes to supplements for animals, but if you are so inclined, it certainly won't be harmful and could even be beneficial to add a little bit of apple cider vinegar to their water. You'll probably hear that in chicken circles as you get involved. And again, we talked about how are you going to provide water in the winter. It's nice to start out in the spring and everything is going well, and then the first freeze is kind of a rude awakening for sure. I've included this image here just to demonstrate what I meant about how their egg production changes over time. So you see that the dotted line is the percentage of their total egg production. So it goes up to its highest peak in their first 2 years of life there, and then it starts to decline over time. So that's just something to keep in mind as their life goes on. The way that chickens produce eggs, it's dependent on the amount of light that they get per day. So as we're going into this time of year, chickens are getting more and more light, and there's no need for supplemental light as we start to get into these increased hours of light per day. However, you can provide supplemental light to them with a simple 40-watt light bulb to help extend their laying into those darker months. So in some ways, it is beneficial to have electricity access to the coop to be able to provide this supplemental light. Yes? Inside the coop, basically because they tend to be free roaming outside of the coop when the sun is up, and when the sun goes down, they go into the coop, and they would be shielded from any supplemental light that you're providing out in the run there. Does that make sense? Sort of. Yeah, basically, you just need to keep the light where they are. And when the sun goes down, they're going back into their coop. That's usually the routine that chickens get on. So that's where the light needs to be provided. If you want to extend their laying. If you don't, and it's not that big of a deal, then you don't have to do that, for sure. And you can add a timer to it, just like lights that you would string on your house. You can add a timer so that it goes off and on as needed. The big thing, I would say this is the most important thing to think about when you're planning to get chickens, is what are you going to do with all their waste? There are concerns when it comes to odor, and as we start to get into the warmer seasons and the flies start awakening, attracting flies and creating an issue in the neighborhood there, and also nutrient leaching. Chicken manure is fairly rich in nitrogen and also phosphorus, and we don't want that extra fertility to be ending up in our storm drains or things like that. So there are some removal options. You could just throw it away. However, as I said, it is a nutrient-rich resource and could be beneficial to you for use in your home garden. There are certainly some things to think about with that as well. Primarily, that it is a food safety concern to apply fresh manure or droppings to your produce items that you might be growing in your vegetable or fruit garden. So what I would recommend is if you're going to apply it fresh, I would put that in your landscaped areas, and it does need to be incorporated, or it will still be attracting flies if it's applied to the surface. Alternatively, if you want to learn more about composting, that is a workshop that we host at least once a year in my office, and you could compost this material, and then it would be safer to apply to areas where you're growing fresh produce. Comments on waste management or?
And it is an important one because that can generate smell, and you want to make sure it's sanitary for the chickens and yourself too. Composting, I think, is really the best option because they produce quite a lot of material, and then it is a great fertilizer for the garden or anything you're growing around your house.
Yeah.
Don't you have to be careful though with putting fresh, that it might burn?
Yeah, not fresh. Yeah, composted.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
sorry. I thought-
Yes.
I misunderstood.
No, I did say that,
Oh,
but
sorry.
yes, I would recommend composting, although it is difficult to compost correctly. There is a protocol with composting. It needs to be the appropriate ratio of fresh material like manure and other nutrient-rich materials with higher carbon, drier materials like leaves and things like that. So it's not just leaving it and sitting it for a year. There's a little bit more to it than just letting it age. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I misunderstood. I thought you were saying just putting it directly in the garden and that would burn, I thought. but-
You wouldn't do. Yeah, you shouldn't do that. Yeah, but if you composted it.
From just a food health. which
Oh,
is
yeah,
obviously
no.
Part, but it's not, I believe it's not great for your soil to put it on directly, right?
Correct.
I thought, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so chickens are subject to a number of diseases, unfortunately. Hopefully, there has been a lot of work done given the amount of commercial chickens that are raised in the country. There's been a lot of work to ensure that diseases are well controlled in the country. So there are some diseases for things like Merrick's disease, and this is one that the chickens can be vaccinated against before you even get them as day-old chicks. Mostly, you just want to keep the chickens in a healthy, sanitary environment, so providing fresh water, keeping the area clean, things like that. And another concern that you might have would be lice or mites. There are certain sprays for the coop itself that you could use when you do like a deep cleaning at this time of year. And you can also provide dust baths that can help prevent these parasites from being a concern in your flock.
And then one other thing in addition is diatomaceous earth is great to add into whatever you're putting in the floor. If you're using wood chips or something like that, it helps avoid these kinds of pests. So.
But if you have any trouble, I definitely encourage you, the day that you get chickens is to set up a relationship with a vet. I'm sorry, these are small. These are clips pulled directly from this bulletin, which is also linked in the QR code there. But our animal control officer did fabulous preparatory work and already grabbed a list of local vet hospitals that also will care for poultry. So that's one of the handouts that's up here in the front. So there are some human health precautions as well when it comes to having poultry. The first is going to be the dust and ammonia that's produced specifically when you're cleaning out the interior coop there. I do recommend that you utilize a dust mask with 2 rubber strips. You might see those single strap dust masks. Those are not very helpful because it's hard to get a good fit on all the contours of your face. Definitely find one that has 2 straps, and it's a good idea to get one that is N95 rated. You can't see it here, but at the bottom there is a label that says specifically how it is rated by NIOSH. Additionally, hand washing is critical. If you have children, this is going to be an even greater concern given their risk for more severe issues if exposed to these various pathogens, but I've just listed some of the ones that are concerning when it comes to poultry. Always good to have hand washing station readily available. I like this hack of very simple, just taking a bar of soap and putting it in a stocking or a mesh bag and hanging it on the spigot outside. That way you can wash your hands right while you're out there and not have to worry about it once you get inside. That's always worked well for me. we mentioned that highly pathogenic avian influenza is one of our biggest concerns right now. So there have been several detections in flocks in New Jersey, backyard flocks in New Jersey, of this unfortunate virus, which will knock out your flock very quickly. Prevention is the most important thing that you can do, basically trying to keep your birds away from wild birds, which are the primary carriers, the primary ones spreading this virus around. And of course, if you, again, I don't think most of you will be free-ranging them, but if you are, then keep them away from surface water that might be contaminated with feces from wild birds. And if you have any feed spills or things that might attract other birds to the property, you want to get rid of those immediately. And if you do have any concerns with this as you go forward, because we're having a hard time knocking this back, it's been a problem for a number of years, definitely reach out to the Department of Agriculture. You can call me, call your vet. Question in the back.
Hi, I'm Dr. Don Lucy. I'm the chair of the Franklin Township Board of Health.
Oh, yeah.
So I just want to piggyback on what's being said now. This has been a major concern with the avian flu, and that's why the price of eggs has gone up because of all the amounts of birds that have been slaughtered. Just in the last 30 days, there have been 36 confirmed flocks throughout the country, of which involved 2.16 million birds have been involved in the last 30 days. And of those flocks, 8 were commercial flocks and 28 were backyard flocks. So backyard flocks are a major source of avian flu, of birds getting contaminated. And as we just said, it's the wild birds, because avian flu is carried in the droppings of birds, in their GI tract, and in their saliva. And so if they get into your bird feed, into your chicken feed, or into the chicken water supply, they can transmit that in their saliva, or if they poop in the enclosure or on the ground. Chickens are constantly pecking at things on the ground. If they peck at tools that were dropped from a contaminated bird, that's a major problem. If you remember the case that happened around the beginning of the year, or around the holidays, there was a man in Louisiana, the first known case of fatality associated with the avian flu. That man was tied to a backyard flock. That was one of his exposures. So this is a real threat. And one of the things that they highly recommend is if you go into the enclosures, you have a bath to basically clean your shoes. So you're not, tracking into the house, you're tracking into those places. But the security of the food supply and the water supply, making sure that it's not contaminated by outside birds is very important. So we're particularly at risk. In fact, I was just looking at statistics from the USDA. The last reported backyard flock in New Jersey was just on April 3rd, and it was in Atlantic County, and it involved 100 birds. And once one bird is suspected of having the disease, the whole flock will come down. They will come in with the whole flock down. So that's very important. Overall, right now, we're talking about, when this started across the country, chickens, ducks, all kinds of turkeys, 168.62 million birds have been put down across the country. Think about 168 million birds in the course of about 3 years. So this is a real serious thing. And I just wanted to let you know, in terms of, I looked up what I'm a clinical pharmacist, but I looked up what the American Veterinary Association says. So some of the things to look at is a low energy and decreased appetite. One of the things too is that there starts to be some purple discoloration, what they basically describe, with skin wall, so there's purple discoloration. There's body swelling that they see with this. Misshapen eggs, so the eggs are not open, or they're soft, or if there is a reduced egg production. These are some of the signs that a flock is infected, as well as nasal discharge, sneezing, diarrhea, loss of coordination, and sudden death. And from the time a bird gets infected to the time the dead's got forward. And there's no cure, there's no vaccine, there's nothing for this now. I know coming up, so they put down backyard flocks, they put down wild birds, like wild bird flocks, as well as factory farms and other kinds of messes of poultry and chicken and ducks and geese flocks from.
Yeah, thank you for that. One thing, maybe the question for those of you watching at home, so in preventing the bird flu, both from a human contamination perspective, obviously washing your hands, trying to use a different pair of shoes if you're walking into the coop area or the run itself. If you can change shoes, like Mr. Rogers said, inside shoes and outside shoes, you can have chicken shoes and non-chicken shoes. That can work really well. Can you talk a little bit more about other things in that space so we can just highlight that? And then in addition, I would say the one part, like, are backyard flocks the source of the avian flu, or the backyard flocks being caught up in what I heard you say the source is regular birds flying over and contaminating the flocks? So I think that's important to be distinguished.
I would just say to the second part of that question that, yeah, I mean, New Jersey, we're at a greater risk, I would say, because we're in that flyway. So we're in a migratory time. For significant portions of the year, there are birds migrating across our area here and bringing along with them what they could have picked up in other areas of the country as well. So I would say the backyard flocks are not the source, but they're certainly being affected. They're more stationary. They're not necessarily being moved around as much. So it's mainly about just protecting them from getting infected.
Well, we're on a timeline where the room's going to expire, so let's get through the rest, because I think Katie, too, has some stuff she wants to share. Yeah, so the idea where, like, which birds are transmitting it, the waterfowl being a concern. Yeah.
Yes, although I have heard of turkey vultures and black vultures because they're eating deceased animals as well. Okay, this is my last slide.
It's okay.
And then we'll take a question, or we'll take all the questions, and Katie will go and, yeah. Okay, I just wanted to let you know that, of course, you're primarily in this for gathering of the eggs, probably. So it's important that you gather the eggs frequently to maintain their quality, particularly as we start to get into the hotter times of the year. You want to get those out of the hot environment that the coop can create. You should store them in the refrigerator. This is a general temperature that is already common. And you can maintain their quality for at least 2 to 3 weeks by doing so. And one question that you'll probably ask is, do I need to wash my eggs? The answer is no. You're not required to wash your eggs. However, there can be benefits to doing so for disease prevention. Okay, this is how you get me. If you have follow-up questions, and I've also linked our QR code to our fact sheet on helpful hints for small flock management. Please, Katie.
Awesome. Next up is Katie Nordhaus. She's our animal control officer, has been working in the town doing extraordinary work for all kinds of animals that are left behind and don't have happy homes. She does a great job in representing the community in all kinds of situations. I have personal experience, and she was named Person of the Year, I think it was just last year, by Franklin Reporter and Advocate for her outstanding work, because congratulations on that. And we're adding one more thing to her wheelhouse of many issues that she has to do every day, which I hope will be an enjoyment for your family and provide, sustenance for years to come with backyard chickens. So I think it's only appropriate that we have a chance to hear from her about, it's going to be all under her office, the registration and oversight of this. So thanks so much for being here.
Okay, thank you. Just to let everybody know, when I came in here, I set down some paperwork up front. So your applications are up here, and there's instructions on the top, and you just have to drop them back off to the animal shelter. And, and then we'll take it from there. Once they're approved, then, we'll let you know and everything like that. It's really not like that big of a deal. It's going to be a lot of work for you guys if you do something like this, but you'll enjoy it. As to me, any pet is a great enjoyment, but there's always work with it. There's also some flyers up here with some veterinarians, so not every veterinarian is going to see a chicken. So there's a list of them that will see them, and there's one that's 24/7, so in case you do have that emergency in the middle of the night. There's also just some basic chicken care also, which Kate just went through everything on there, and there's also some flyers there with some starter kits that some of the places around here offer, to start with your coop and how much land. And so the one thing I could say is that I have been to some houses in town that some people have them, and I think one of the biggest problems was just a loose dog got in there and killed some of them. We generally, if we find the owner of that dog, obviously they're responsible for paying you back, basically. So the value of your chicken, they have to, take care of that. There's also a lot of times we get calls for hawks getting into the pens. So that's a hard one because, usually they're gone by the time I get there. Sometimes they're not. I've had to catch a couple of them out of the pens. So it's really important, all the stuff that Kate went over with all, making sure that they're, predator-proof is really important because we have everything in Franklin. I mean, truly, there are coyotes, there are foxes, everything is here. That's why I said everything comes to Franklin when they come. So I think those are the biggest, issues that you just want to make sure they're safe, because you want to get up in the morning, you want to go out there and say hello to them and let them out and let them enjoy the day. So, but if anybody has any questions, I also have cards I will leave up here. Feel free to take all this with you, and you can just contact me, email or phone, and I'll try to help you through it.
And I'll mention a couple of things, too. The registration is a one-time $25 fee. And after that, it's just an annual registration to say that you still have the chickens so that if there's some sort of problem, some sort of sweeping issue that we can't even prepare for today, we know where they are and we can take care of it and protect you and get you information. So you're not going to have to pay $25 every single year. But we do also want to know if you don't have them anymore because you didn't re-register that, we can close up that paperwork. And then for different size lots, you can have different quantities of chickens, and in no residential area can roosters be kept in a backyard flock. Both for the noise and other related issues for that. So if you were to go to Tractor Supply, where chickens are available, if you can find them now, because as soon as they come in, they're gone by the end of the day. So you got to join the Backyard Chicken Group, and they'll be posting, they're available here, and then you'll get there and they won't be there. They sell them in 6s right now. Last year it used to be in 4s. So if you're in an area that only allows 2, that could become problematic. So if there are folks here who are in that situation, that's why I thought it'd be good to kind of create a community of 3 houses that wanted to have 2 chickens each, got 6 together, and then split them up in the parking lot or at the house or something. That's what I would recommend in that situation, because that's how they're doing it. It has to be a minimum of 6, but my understanding is a lot of people buy them for Easter for the family, and then they don't have an intention to keep them, and so they have to keep making the quantity more and more, so it's less likely that you would do that. And that's a sad thing for the chicks, but a reality for the retailer. So one question that came, and you get, also, Tractor Supply is amazing. Not that I'm endorsing any particular company. Many places are, but it's at least the one in Hillsborough. There's an employee there, Nicole, when we got started, was amazing and taught us everything we need to know and talked to us, felt like for hours. And you'll find that people who have chickens like to talk about what experiences they've had. So I can keep going on for a long time. Started with a small coop and about 6 and grew over time. We buried the fence because things got under. We electrified the fence because things got over. We covered the whole thing because things flew in. That'd be hawks. And each time it's pretty horrific. And these covered ones, and I like how Kate did such a great job in outlining the covered ones, and can be on a hard surface, like maybe like a 4x4 pressure treated lumber with netting either to the side. She's mentioned horizontal or vertical down. That keeps them from crawling, digging under and getting there. We've had raccoons. We've had, like I mentioned, hawks. Not too much on the pests with the food. I think we've done a really good job in the metal containers and keeping them tight and making sure nothing's spread around. You will learn as you go. Likely you will make mistakes, but hopefully this workshop is helpful to avoid many of them. And talking to as many people as possible is helpful. One question that someone asked me is around organic chickens, organic eggs. If you're interested in doing that, maybe Kate and Katie, is there what does that mean to have organic eggs if you're a backyard flock owner? Do you have to buy a organic chicken? And then what happens if you have non-organic scraps? Like, I know this is a word that's thrown around a lot. We could probably talk more about it, but just generally.
So in terms of commercially, if you were to buy commercially organic eggs, those chickens would, basically that entire operation is certified by a National Organic Standards certifying agency. So there are specific requirements that that farm needs to uphold, whether it be time, I don't know if with chickens if it's free range or if it's outdoor time specifically, but I know that's something with organic livestock, and they also need to be fed a diet that is certified organic as well. So if you wanted to pursue that for your own flock, you wouldn't be going through a certifying agency. It's just for personal use. You're not looking to sell those under that label. However, so yeah, you would be looking for an organic feed. And I don't know if they have, I'm not sure if they have organic flocks to source the birds from.
Right, that's what I wondered.
I don't believe so. I think it's how you raise them, not the source. But
Any other questions? We could probably take maybe 5 or 6 minutes to go over. Question, and yeah, go ahead. You do it. You pick.
Just in the back.
In the back, yeah. The question was to have access to the presentation.
I can give you the PDF.
So what we'll do is we'll create a page which will have a recording to this for folks who weren't able to make it tonight, and we can put some of these resources on there as well, and then a link to the presentation. Yeah. We'll put it on the website. It's often, we have a lot of information on our website. It's actually pretty incredible. What I do when I try to find stuff is just go into the search bar and click back, search backyard chickens, and it should come up with that. Also you guys have a section on your website?
Yeah, so we could probably add it to that.
Yeah, we could add it
Plus,
there.
I will also have all this stuff at the shelter, so if you ever stop by, you can just pick it up there.
One question about, do you need a permit for the coop? Or is that just a permit?
Yeah, you wouldn't. My understanding is you don't need a permit for the coop because it's a temporary structure if it's within those dimensions. It's not like a shed or something like that. Yep.
The agent that you use to minimize the insects, is that toxic to the chickens? And my other question is, besides enrichment, do you need enrichment, besides the chickens themselves, do you need any other additional enrichment?
So specifically with the pesticide for controlling any type of mite or lice that might be within the coop, you always want to refer to the label on that material. So that material will be specifically labeled for that use, either controlling of lice or controlling of mites in a structure. And the label, I'm not familiar with these labels. I haven't used them myself, but I'm just giving an example. It might say something like, the birds should be kept out of the area for 2 hours or something like that. It will specifically say. Anytime you're using any type of pesticide, it is specifically labeled for that use. There's just restrictions on the re-entry time, whether it be for humans or the livestock. Was there a second? Oh, enrichment?
Do you need any additional enrichment other than themselves to make them happy?
In my experience, you can tell when they're stressed because they're starting to pluck their feathers, fight with each other. They may be lethargic, things like that. So again, if you join these chicken groups, there will be innumerable ways that people have developed enrichment for their chickens. I've seen things like hanging cabbages, and they just peck at it to death and just kind of enjoy that. I think just providing opportunities for them to do that natural pecking behavior and be distracted from each other is helpful. Any examples?
Yeah, I think I tend to think having more space for them is always better because they will find their own things to do. They have this sort of thing where they play chase with each other, where I don't know what they pick up, but some chicken decides like, I got the thing, and then all of them follow them around, and I never know what it is in their mouth, or if they just pretended to pick something up and they're carrying a ghost and they're come get me. And the other thing too is that chickens have languages, so they can learn your names and tell each other when someone in your family's coming, and they'll make a certain sound for each different person that they get to know, and they can learn, dozens and dozens of individuals and communicate to each other. So if you're the one that comes with the treats right away, they might say your name, and they get excited, and they're pretty interesting and engaging animals. They're not always the friendliest, so you have to work really hard early to make a connection with them and continually reward them with treats to create that connection. And at least if you're throwing food and they're coming near you, feel like at least you have a connection with them. We have 2 chickens that are actually friendly, and I call them both Casper, like Casper the Friendly Ghost, but the rest not so friendly, just by their nature and their breed. But it's hard to connect with them in the beginning. But on enrichment, there are lots of things that you can do, but it's not like we have a chicken swing, but some people do. We tried it, none of them got on it, we took it away. So you just have to see what they're into too. Yeah, but we try to tend to have a lot of space for them, so they really keep themselves quite occupied. Other suggestions? Yeah.
I would just say, they're obviously your pets. When you're going away, you do need someone to stop by and watch them, so keep that in mind too. You can't leave them for a couple of days. Someone does need to put food and water. So just keep that in mind.
So that sort of suggestion was on vacations. They're just like, having any other pet and need care. And it's not always, most people don't know how to take care of a chicken, so you got to pre-train your friends and family.
Yes.
I think the question is, if you buy a shed and then use it as a chicken coop, would you need a permit for that? I don't know, but I can find out the answer to what the size is. I know in Franklin, there's a certain size restriction before you need, size restriction on how big it can be. In the ordinance, I think the maximum size is 80 square feet, which would mean 8 by 10. But if it exceeded that, that would also not be okay according to this ordinance. So I'm not like a computer. I can spit that one out. Yeah, I think it's 10 by 10 for a shed, but for the chicken, it's 8 by 10. That's what I think it is. Yeah, 10 by 10. But this would be 8 by 10 maximum. So. And then also if you go down Route 27, the Amish market, there is a whole bunch of chicken coops that are there. And a lot of the Tractor Supply places do have some that are available. You can order them online in Wayfair, and you can assemble smaller ones. But I think to Kate's point, you got to think about cleaning and getting in there in the small spaces. And they're made with sort of temporary materials that may get you a season or two, but if you're leaning on it, you could put a hole through some of these the way they've kind of designed them. But they might be a good way to get started, to learn what you really want to do, how you want to arrange things.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, who's going to be there anymore? I think
Well, there's a Dollar Tree and the Amish market, and they're both still there.
I just want to change. If someone finds a chicken that's dead, but it's not put in hatch, in terms of disease, what's the procedure? What should somebody do at that point?
They can contact us, and they can actually turn it, bring it to us, and there would be like a small disposal fee. So all our animals are cremated. So.
You want to know what you don't know effectively. So is there a mechanism to report it to the Board of Health so they can do the testing to confirm whether or not?
I believe the problem is right now that they're not testing, at least I was told, we're not testing any birds unless there's like 20 or more that are dead in one area. So,
Because generally, if you have that, it's contagious across a whole bunch. Like you wouldn't have,
Right.
if you had 4 chickens, 1 that died of avian flu. Is that what you're saying? They would all die. Yeah, that's why I think they're doing
Yeah.
it in the quantity.
Like the first one.
yeah.
Take 3 or 4 days before they die. It's like the first one is showing signs and you should find one dead and the others weren't that really lumpy. So like, what's the mechanism to report that or to get that investigated?
Well, I would suggest they either call us so that we can contact the health department and see what the next steps are that they want to do for that.
You can also, if you ever have a livestock animal die and you want to know why, you can also send it to the Department of Agriculture for a necropsy. But I would go with your local officials first if there's any concern for avian influenza. Yeah.
Any other questions? I'm really excited to see so many people here interested in learning more about it. I want to thank, any other questions? I want to thank our 2 speakers. Kate Brown, amazing job. Thank you for all you do. That was awesome. Katie Nordhaus, Person of the Year, and also doing a great job on so many different of the animals that we love in town. Thank you very much. And good luck to everyone. And, create a community around this. Let's lean on each other. If you need anything, Ed Potosnik, I'm a member of council. Feel free to reach out to me, too. I'm happy to answer questions. And there's some papers up here. We have to be out of here in 18 minutes, so we can say hi to each other if you need something. Thanks again.
Thank you.